Welcome to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. I am your host, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday, the beginning of a long Labor Day weekend. For most of you out there, be safe, see family, have fun. Today, waking up, I know Danny behind the screen here and I, a little short on sleep. We're at that CU game last night. A lot of excitement. It's fun. They're a fun watch. Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter are two of the best players in college. But some of the same concerns we had last year where O-line a little shaky, D-line a little greasy. They made some adjustments in the second half. That was a novel concept. We did not see that last year from their defense, but CU escapes 33-26 over was it 33 or 31, 26 over North Dakota State. Nebraska up next. Gonna have to play better to beat Nebraska, but football season has started. It feels real now. Broncos, less than what we're entering that week one. They're about 8 days away here. Sunday at Seattle. Not prime time, not Russell Wilson going back, not the clown show that's Nathaniel Hackett. It's just a normal game. So we're going to get into what's coming up for the Broncos and the importance of Courtland Sutton to this Broncos offense, if not this team, especially as it relates to Bo Nix. And was he going to be traded? Were the Broncos really going to trade Courtland Sutton? I want to get into that. And also, we hear from owner Greg Penner. They had a groundbreaking on their new $175 million training facility, a 2-year project. They had that groundbreaking on Thursday morning. I was there for that. But more specifically, to hear and ask Greg Penner, what are his expectations for this team and this quarterback? We're going to get to all of that after the break. Have you been injured in a car wreck or hurt at work? What are you waiting for? Give my friends at Hoggett Injury Law a call. Their motto with us, it's personal. I've known Darby Hoggett forever. We traveled the country watching our boys play youth baseball. We talked a lot of Broncos. He said, Troy, do a Broncos podcast. I'm so happy he did. I love doing this. I became his good friend. Many of his clients become his good friend. You don't even have to pay Darby up front. If your case goes as planned, Darby will be the one writing checks to you. So again, if you've been hurt in a car wreck or injured at work, give Darby's team a call at 1-833-HOGGATT. That's 1-833-HOGGET, or visit the website at hoggettlaw.com. Well, welcome back here on a Friday to the Broncos podcast with Troy Renck. It is starting to feel real. Last week was like week 0 of college football. We had the Georgia Tech, Florida State game. We had preseason game number 3, but let's be honest. This week it's starting to really take root that we are in that beautiful time of the year where every Thursday, every Saturday, every Sunday we have football. That's what we've become. Baseball used to be the national pastime. That's past our bedtime now. It's football. We are a football culture. I covered baseball for 15 years, and I can tell you the interest level between the two sports is not comparable. I mean, football is it. And the Broncos, we have a little hope, folks, a little hope. After 8 years of being catfished by bad quarterbacks, bad coaches, it looks like they have a plan, that they're following a plan with Sean Payton, the right coach, Bo Nix, the right rookie quarterback. They're going younger across the roster with a wider vision instead of Band-Aids and one player away with delusions of adequacy. This is a team that people, when I talk at the supermarket or out and about, like, hey, they feel like we got a shot here. We got a shot. We got a reason for hope. Now, I'd say pump the brakes on winning record, but we got hope. And let's start with one of the reasons this team could sink or swim, and that's Courtland Sutton. Say, Troy, a receiver, really? Well, we're going to get into Bo Nix next week with the podcast, certainly his first challenge at Seattle. But Courtland Sutton represents an interesting player for me for 2 reasons. One, he is so critical to Bo Nix's development by moving on from Tim Patrick. And I've told you, folks, I was fine with it. I love Tim Patrick. I love everything he represents. He's admired and respected in the locker room for his work ethic, his tenacity, just the entire thing he brings to the field and off the field. But he's 30, coming off 2 missed seasons with Achilles and knee injuries. So you go younger. But that means the onus is on Courtland Sutton to have his 2019 season. That's the last time the Broncos had a 1,000-yard receiver, and it was him. As great as it felt like he played at times last year, folks, he had 772 yards in a 17-game season. That's not enough. They need Courtland Sutton to be a 1,000-yard receiver again. And because it's so critical to microwaving the development and keeping Bo Nix on track. But it's on Sutton to play well. And he's got every incentive to play well with no guaranteed money left in his contract. He wants to get paid, whether it's here or somewhere else. And you'd like it to be here. I don't know that it will based on how they're trending, but they need Sutton to be a player. And I'm talking, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns, big catches on third down. I'm not expecting Justin Jefferson. We're not expecting Jamar Chase. We're not expecting Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying any of that. But 772 yards is not going to cut it. Now, remember, coming into last year, Sutton had 2 touchdowns in his previous 26 games. That was my biggest complaint with him. And everyone would say, it's the quarterbacks. They all stink. Some of them did. But other guys roll out of bed and still get 1,000 yards. Whether it's Garrett Wilson, the kid from Washington. I mean, if you're that guy, you can't get 1,000 yards in a 17-game season? And I want to see that from Sutton. He seems like he's in a really good place after the contract thing got resolved. They threw him a little bit more guaranteed money. He deserved praise, not a big raise. They found a middle ground where they throw him a little bit guaranteed money, and he's got incentives in his contract to go get that money. Some of them are not reachable, but some of them are and tied to team goals. So as we talked about Bo Nix all camp, as we should, he is kind of the overarching theme and the prism through which I will view this season. If they go 6-11, Bo Nix is trending upward, successful season. Because next year you're going to have about $100 million in cap space to go fix and get weapons. And it might mean moving on from Sutton, but you got him now. You got him now. He's got incentive, both literally and figuratively, to play well in his contract to clip incentives to get himself more money and to get himself his next contract. And the Broncos need him to play well to help Bo Nix. Because if you think that Dolce and Gabbana, the fashion show, is going to be the guy, I'm here to say that's a risky bet. I like the guy, and we love his hair. Danny, we love his hair, right? Danny's got a stash that looks like he's in a porn from 1975. So I guarantee you he loves Dolce's hair. But we got to see him on the field. The guy played 2 halves last year. So if you're saying, it's fine if Sutton's just okay because Dolce is going to be the guy. If Dulcich finishes with like 45 catches and 550 yards, 600 yards and 6 touchdowns, I'll be thrilled. I got to see it. Sean Payton talks about, you don't have to see it every day, but you got to see it. We haven't seen it with Greg. But if he develops and Sutton's doing what he's doing, like now, and then Javonte Williams gets to 1,000 yards. Again, they haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher or receiver since 2019. It's a long time ago, folks. In NFL years, that is, that's dog years in NFL. So long time ago that it's been. But Courtland Sutton is a big part. And here's why I wanted to bring up Sutton's name today. While you were watching CU and the apps, it's a great watching them go 1-0, start their season. Quietly, Diana Rossini from The Athletic drops this nugget as Brandon Ayuk finally signed his contract, gets the guaranteed money he wants. He's missed all of camp, but the vibe right up until the end changed because there was a point where they didn't think they were going to sign him. So they offered him up in a 3-way deal where the Broncos would get a 3rd-round pick in the deal, and Ayuk ends up in Pittsburgh. So a 3-team trade. And if you were to tell me, without knowing the context, Broncos could get a 3rd for Sutton, I would be like, sell. Because they couldn't even approach that value the previous 2 off seasons. And they tried with Sutton. I mean, they were looking at one point like at a 5th rounder and eating some money. But why not? So why not do it? They're going younger, right? They let Tim Patrick go. You can't strip Bo Nix of all his weapons. Like, this isn't, Andrew Luck. This isn't John Elway. This isn't an all-time quarterback prospect that you can just put out, the island of misfit toys and Santa Claus Nix is going to figure it out. I mean, come on. You got to give the kid a chance. So on the surface, a third round pick, for Sutton, that's great value, but you can't do it when you've already moved on from Tim Patrick. Because can you imagine going into the season with Bo Nix, given the expectations he's facing and the pressure? And please, Broncos country, give him a little bit of grace here. Give him a little bit of a chance and put the seatbelt on. It's going to be a bumpy ride at times. That's the nature of this. But if they moved on from Sutton for a third rounder and you go into the season with Josh Reynolds as your 1 and then Mims as your 2 and Devon Vele as your 3, I mean, if that's not the worst receiving core in the NFL, maybe New England's worse? I mean, Carolina's was just brutal last year, and you saw what it did to Bryce Young. I mean, he didn't play well, but, I mean, he's got Roberto Duran, guy's hands of stone, Edward Scissors hands outside trying to catch passes. Like, you got to give a guy a chance in the NFL. It's not college. Run around and make plays. So when you see that report, folks, and some of you are football savvy, certainly in Broncos country, you guys are amazing. Third round pick for Sutton, that's great value. You can't do it. Josh Reynolds has been a 3 everywhere he's been. And my experience, when you say you're a 3 and now I want you to be a 1, you know what happens? You learn very quickly in the season, there's a reason this guy was a 3, and now he's being guarded by the best cornerback on the other team. So now he's not even a 3. He's not getting anything because he's not good enough to get open against the number 1 corner. And as much as I like Mims' potential, he's been a ghost in camp. I got to see it. I mean, and if you say it's preseason, but in practice, when we're watching, I haven't seen Mims have this role where you're like, okay, all these pieces are fitting. So if he was your 2, Vele is Tim Patrick circa 2018. That's why I love keeping him. But I don't know that he does as a rookie. So again, when you see the report, the Diana Rossini, a great reporter for The Athletic, saying that there was a third round pick involved with the Broncos in a 3-way deal, Niners and Steelers, before Ayuk finally signed his deal, the value would have been great. No way you could do it. If you want Bo Nix to have any chance to succeed, you got to give him a 1. And Sutton on most teams maybe is a 2. He's a 1 on this team. And damn it, he's got to play like a 1 this year. And he's got every incentive to do so in his contract, with his standing with his team. If he really, if it means that the world to him to finish his career as a Bronco, all that's on the table for him. They need Courtland Sutton to play like a 1. That's why you keep him. And that's why you believe in him. And they need him for Bo Nix's development. But what about Bo Nix? What kind of numbers should we project for Bo Nix? I think I'm a little more bullish than most, but ESPN has some interesting numbers. I want to get to those after the break, and then we'll hear from owner Greg Penner, not only about the new training facility, $175 million large, that they broke fake ground on yesterday with a little sandbox. Not only do we talk about that, but he talks about the expectations for the team. But what would numbers look like from an analytical standpoint for Bo Nix in his rookie season? We'll get to that after the break. Never a bad time to enhance your home. Maybe you just want it more comfortable. Maybe you're selling it. Glass doors can add a nice touch. That's where Jamie Haig comes in. He and his wife, Lisa, run RBJ Glass. They pride themselves on customer service, honesty, and integrity. Jamie put a sliding glass door in our house. We absolutely love it. They install European shower enclosures, standard shower glass. They do mirrors, window and glass replacement, insulated doggy doors, office cubicles, and small commercial storefronts. At RBJ, they have competitive prices and offer discounts to veterans, senior citizens, and have even accommodated single parents. So what are you waiting for? Give my friend Jamie a call. It's Jamie of RBJ Glass. That's Jamie, 720-883-3144, 720-883-3144, or email Jamie at rbjglass2017@gmail.com. Welcome back to the pod. Hope you're having a beautiful start to your Memorial Day, Labor Day. The time passes when we're in training camp. Labor Day weekend. Again, this is a fun time. It's kind of that last vestige of summer. whether you're going to the lake, maybe you're getting up to the mountains, be safe, have fun, because when you come back, it is all football all the time. I'll be working Monday because the Broncos will have some kind of media access. I mean, we're in game week, folks. Can you believe it? We're in game week. You go Monday, you go Wednesday, you go Thursday, then Friday, then I'm on a plane to Seattle on Saturday. Last time I was on a plane in Seattle, talk about sleepless in Seattle, it was clueless in Seattle. I watched Nate Hackett coach one of the worst games in the history of the NFL and then try to double down and say it was the right move to have Brandon McMahon attempt a record field goal in a stadium where the wind was blowing in his face. Because, Brandon wanted to do it. He said he could do it. Yeah, my kids tell me a lot of things they could do. I don't believe them. You say no. That's why you're the head coach. When he says, I can make the kick, interesting. I'll file that away. You don't allow him to make the decisions when we get to the 46-yard line. We're kicking. Oh, my God. I remember standing in the end zone on the opposite end of where they were going to kick it. And I'm texting my sons because part of the thing is when you're going down to do a TV live shot, this is when I was at Denver 7, you're running down, you lose internet service, so you lose a couple plays. So I'm like, get down to the field. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm texting my kids like, why is the clock going down? Are they, what yard line? Am I missing something? Are they on the 36? Is the scoreboard operator like playing games with me? No, they're on the 46. And thinking that this is like a gimme field goal, they lose. And players to this day say if they somehow had won that game, maybe that season turns out differently instead of the absolute dumpster fire it was. But I will say this. I have never been in an NFL stadium where a crowd was louder. Their vitriol for Russell Wilson, it was rivaling like a European soccer match, or I've been to WBC games like between Japan and in the WBC or the Dominican Republic versus Venezuela, where the people on their feet yelling the whole time. They never stopped yelling at Russell Wilson. And the loudest crowd I'd ever been to in an NFL game was at the Kingdome, but that's a dome. That crowd was crazy. Bo Nix isn't going to face that. He's not going to face the drama of returning home, the homecoming, none of that. But Seattle's going to be a real test. It's going to be a real test because their coach, McDonald, that comes over from the Ravens, known for exotic schemes, known for challenging, disguising stuff to make life miserable for quarterbacks. How quickly can Bo Nix process to avoid mistakes? And one of the things, and just file this away, not gospel, but when I talk to players about Bo Nix, they'll say, take away some of the preseason games. This is practices, ones versus ones, and versus the Packers on that Friday, ones versus one, where they will go back and watch film because Nix has made a check at the line of scrimmage, and they'll be like, holy crap, I didn't think he would see that early in his career. I can't believe he saw that with the safety and he audibled out. These are just little things that suggest he's going to be okay. It's not going to be seamless, folks. It's not. But if you can see and uncloud the picture on the other side of the line of scrimmage, your chances of succeeding in the NFL increase dramatically. And Sean Payton is willing to show elasticity in the way they're going to use RPOs, extended runs, outside zone, and also one-side reads for Bo. He's not asking him to stand in the pocket and go read like a sprinkler. It's like, hey, one read, two read, get outside, be an athlete. And when those naked, then if you run the ball, which they're built to run with McGlinchey, with Bowles, with Miners, they're built, and Powers, they're built to run the ball. You can do play action. You can do naked boots. And that's what can make him succeed. But what would the numbers look like? ESPN came out with the numbers for Bo Nix, and bullish is not the word I would use. They have interesting numbers that suggest that there's going to be some fans gulping Pepto-Bismol on some nights, because here is their projection. ESPN Analytics projection for Bo Nix rookie year. 3,155 yards passing. Not bad. 3,155. Because I think in a lot of shops, again, I'm not a gambler, but I love the way they do odds and stuff because they see it from a different lens. And, it's more of a cold analysis. It takes out any kind of bias, frankly. But you could see, I think most shops are, not clear he's going to get over 3,000. So that's a good number, 3,155. 17 touchdowns, 13 picks, 4 fumbles, which would be on sacks or runs, 190 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns rushing. Not terrible. I mean, I think that's a realistic number. I myself think he's going to be 3,200. So we're similar on the yards. I just don't like this 17 to 13 touchdown pick ratio. And I get he's a rookie. I'm not discounting that or dismissing it. But I'd say for me, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks because of how Sean Payton's going to call the game. I don't think Sean Payton's going to let him get to 13 interceptions. And you say that seems like a low number. It's really not, because of the fact most guys that lead the league in picks now are right around 1 per game. Around 16, 17 will lead the league. It's a turnover averse league. So I don't think Bo gets to 13. I think it's going to be more like 20 to 10. Now, I say 20, that's ambitious. Do you realize the first quarterback to go over 20 touchdown passes in a season for the Broncos since Peyton Manning was Russell Wilson last year? I'm telling you, it's been bleak around here, folks. 13 starters. When Bo Nix starts, he will be the 14th starter since Peyton Manning. But they have him at 31-55, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks, 4 fumbles. Fumbles are going to happen. You're going to get sacked. He's going to run. I would believe that these numbers are going to, my numbers for him, more, and it's a little bit of spitballing here, but watching him, but playing off these numbers, I have him 3,200, 20 touchdowns, 10 picks, 4 fumbles I'm fine with. They had him 190 rushing yards. I think that number is going to be closer to 250, 300. Because he's a guy that can throw out a 40-yard rushing game pretty easily. Again, people, when he got recruited to Auburn, he was going to be their Tim Tebow, best dual threat in the country. And seeing him in person, the one thing that jumps out, he's more athletic than I thought. His lower half, his build, his legs. This is a guy. Now, again, he's got to be smart. The NFL is no joke. You do not want to take hits in the open field, but you got to be able to get down. You got to be able to slide. But I see a guy that could get to 250, 300 rushing yards and more like 4 touchdowns. But listen, rookies, there's a reason they get coaches fired and they drive fans crazy, because they make mistakes that it's like, man, every time we think they figure it out, they make a mistake. But Bo Nix, ESPN analytics, I would say lukewarm on him. They like the yardage, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks. He's not going to be leading anyone's fantasy team. And 190 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm a little more bullish on that. I think it's 20 touchdowns. I think he 10 picks. I think he could get to 300 rushing yards with 3 or 4 touchdowns. So, again, if he has that year, especially if he finishes strong, I think this year is a success. Even if they're 6-11, folks, if you walk away from that year with those numbers saying, now we're going to go get weapons for him, $100 million to spend, that you're going to have some room to spend. I think at that point that you're feeling really good about where this Broncos team is going. Sean Payton has never won fewer than 7 games. He loves being the underdog. He thinks they can be a playoff team. He's never said that. And I tried to get him to say it. He won't, but they are going to be an interesting and competitive team. And if Bo Nix can play anything like he's played in the preseason, the arrow will finally be pointing up. But what does the owner think about him? The guy writing the checks, the guy that is kept his support with Sean Payton, told him, you know what, we'll take an $85 million cap hit on Russell Wilson to pay him. They paid him $124 million for 11 wins. Ouch. That makes the Mike Hampton contract look special. So listen, they moved on. They got Bo Nix. They got a new facility. They got some expectations. So Greg Penner, the owner, they had a groundbreaking yesterday with their new training facility, $175 million training facility. It'll be over the course of 2 years. You will still have people fans at camp next year. They're figuring all that out, folks. But this is a 2-year project. They hope to be done June of 2026. It's all designed to bring employees, kind of centralize them from the stadium, then into one location. But more than anything, minimize player steps, make it much more player friendly. They literally counted the steps and monitor how far they have to go from practice field to eat, to lunch, to the weight room, to the locker room. And this is basically puts it all together, where you show up, walk out the door to the practice field, the weight rooms, like everything is put in a central location. And the thing I love about this, and I can hear your eyes roll, I get it. But ownership is showing we are going to be accountable. We are going to give you everything you need to succeed. So you know what? Go win some games on the field. And so that's what Greg Penner talked about. This interview starts with Greg Penner talking about the facility, the groundbreaking, and then a few minutes in, you'll hear me ask him about his expectations for the team, expectations for Bo Nix, and also how he views Sean Payton in his second season here in Denver. So let's hear from Broncos owner Greg Penner.
Couldn't be more excited about it. This facility has been great for us, but the new one's, I think, going to really set a standard, and that's what we're about here, and setting that standard for our players, folks that work for us, and our fans. So again, we're excited about it. Happy to take any questions.
What are you most excited about with this project, just in terms of once you're actually in the building? Like, what do you think the biggest change will be for the organization?
So, Kerry coined the phrase when we first bought the team, we want to be the best team to play for, work for, and cheer for. This really gets at the first two of those. And for the players, right now they have 3 different buildings they walk to. This is going to bring that all together, create a much larger locker room, upgrade the sports performance areas. So I think for the players, it's going to be terrific. For the folks that work for us, we're going to bring a lot of people down from the stadium that are working there, getting everybody together in one building. We think will create a more collaborative environment that helps us reach our goals.
When did this idea come about, and who came up with this idea?
It came up when Chip Conway, our VP of Operations, came to me and he was talking about some upgrades we were going to need to make to keep this facility up to par, and I was looking at it. It was a few $1 million, but it was each season it was going up. And at the same time, we had a player survey come out that talked about the size of our locker room, and so then we started saying, well, instead of just upgrading that, could we modify it, make it a little bigger? That was going to be challenging. Finally, that turned into maybe we put it over here, and then the big vision was let's just combine the whole thing and do this at once and make it right.
What was the difference between doing this here and maybe making it part of a whole new facility with entertainment and that sort of thing? What was the difference maker there?
There are a couple things. I mean, one would just be timing, which is, as we've talked about, we're evaluating options for a new stadium potentially, and whether that's on the current site or somewhere else, but we weren't ready to make that decision at this point. The second thing is, some teams do have that, and I think with mixed results, I think in certain cases there are positives to having both in one location, but there's also something about coming to a place where, this is where we practice, this is our space. Sometimes we'll have fans, as you all know, and partners here, but it's really about work and practice. And I think sometimes if you combine that with more entertainment, there can be some negatives with that.
In the end, that facility will have served you guys for 36 years. So when you worked on designing this, how much did kind of planning for the future come into play, knowing that there may need to be tweaks on this at some point to keep the new place viable for a long time to come?
Yeah, we built in some flexibility, so we have some different ways we can actually add on to the building that we're going to be constructing. And that's, both for the football side as well as the business side. So there is flexibility, but also, I don't see rosters getting that much bigger at this point, and it'd be hard to see coaching staffs get that much bigger. So, of course, could be wrong, but we do have flexibility built in if we need it.
Were there any facilities that were more influential than others when you were looking at a variety of things throughout the country?
Yeah, we didn't see one facility that we said, oh, that's exactly what we want to build. So it was more taking pieces from both Miami, Minnesota, the Raiders. We saw a number of facilities where we saw some features that we didn't like that much, and so it was both taking things that we liked and things that we didn't like, and then creating what was right for our team in this space.
Greg, do you think brick and mortar things improve football, or are they independent problems?
I think they could be both. So I think if we overbuilt something and it was too big and maybe too nice, that could almost have a negative impact. So that was part of this, which is getting the spaces right. This is going to be it's going to be a great facility. It's going to be modern. But we didn't want it to be too big, and we wanted, again, for players to be in an area where they felt like these are their spaces. But But I do think it sends a message to the team that we're willing to invest and we're going to set a very high standard, and our expectations for ourselves and for them is very high.
As you
Greg,
do
speaking-
construction on this, facility, feels like the roster's a little bit under construction and rebuilding. What are your expectations for this season?
I'm encouraged by what I saw in training camp. I mean, you go back to when I spoke after the season, I said this is going to be a critical off season, and it's obviously too early to declare success, but I've been really impressed with what Sean and George have done in this off season with the veteran players that we brought in through free agency or trades, our approach to the draft, what we did there. From the first day of OTAs, just the enthusiasm, competitiveness. I mean, I'm sure you all could hear it on the field. It was different, and that carried through to training camp, and that passion and intensity we saw it in the preseason games. So it's a young team, but I've got high expectations for what we can accomplish.
The reality of the quarterback position is that person becomes a face of the franchise. So in the last few months, what have been your impressions of Bo Nix and how he could grow into that sort of role?
I've been really impressed with his poise and maturity. There's something about starting that many games in college that obviously develops that, and I think he's got some incredible traits. It was great to see how he played in the first 2 preseason games. I had a chance to call him after Sean announced that he'd be the starting quarterback. Had a great conversation with him then. You know, all rookies are going to go through some ups and downs in their first season, and I told him we're going to support you. I'm excited to see what he can do on the field and the rest of this roster.
Do you feel Sean energized in a different way? Because you're here almost every day. And what are your perception of Sean in year 2 with this, what he calls young and hungry and dangerous roster?
Yeah, I do think he's energized, and anytime year 2 is going to be a little easier than the first year, where you've come in an organization, you understand the organization, the history, the fans. He and George and myself have developed a real sense of partnership and respect and communication. He's had a chance to reshape the roster in a way that he's really excited about. So yeah, it's been great to see his approach.
Greg, you were in Canton last month for Randy, and then I guess how was that experience, and how hopeful are you that you'll be back next year for Mike Shanahan?
It was a great weekend. It was terrific to celebrate Randy and to be able to do that with so many of our alumni there. I had a chance to meet a number of alumni that I hadn't met previously, so that part of it was terrific. That was our second year there after being there for DeMarcus, and hopefully we'll be there next year. We totally respect the process that the Hall of Fame voters have, but we think Coach Shanahan is very deserving of a spot there. When you look at the impact that he's had on the game, I believe he's the only coach who's won two successive Super Bowls and is not in the Hall. And then you look at his coaching tree of 6 former assistants that are currently head coaches. It's hard to argue with that track record.
Greg, you mentioned alumni. We talk to, we hear a lot of alumni now saying that it's been different since you guys got in here in terms of involving them, the engagement with them. What does that kind of stem from? How early was that kind of identified as a priority for you guys in terms of connecting with them?
Yeah, it wasn't a point where we said, this has to be part of our program. It was really, we got here and really quickly understood. I remember, the first days of training camp, and each day there were different alumni out here that were not here because they had to be. They were here because they wanted to be here. And just having a chance to talk to them and hear about their experiences and their connection to the team, pretty quickly we recognized that was going to be a critical part of what we're doing.
Well, that was Broncos owner Greg Penner. I am Troy Renck from the Denver Post. Again, I don't usually air a full presser. Just the owner rarely talks. And he last talked in March when I did a one-on-one with him, and I ran in the pod in March. He just, they usually talk they talk before the season, maybe mid-season, and then a season ender. So, and there was news there, obviously, with the training facility, the $175 million new training facility. Again, the target date for that, folks, is June of 2026, and it will disrupt some ways, and there'll be adjustments to training camp, but ultimately it's going to be a better viewing experience, but you're still going to be able to go to camp. in both 2025 and 2026. And 2026 would be should be a terrific experience. That they're going to change the direction of the berm, put it on the other sides to get people out of the sun. That big tower is going down. So a lot of changes coming, but I find interesting that Greg Penner, Sean Payton, they will not use the word rebuild. They know they're younger, but they're not conceding they're rebuilding. And they do feel like they're on the right track. And again, Greg Penner is a very focused, linear man. He was telling me after this presser how he recently did a 100-mile bike ride up near Aspen, like Crested Butte area. Like the guy, because he trains for like a triathlete and hikes 14er. I mean, the guy is incredible shape. And he was telling me, like, yeah, I said, why are you doing 100-mile bike rides? Are you training for an event? He's like, no, just for life. And I'm like, I'm hoping to get 10,000 steps in. You guys riding 100 miles on a bike? What? Hello. That is not on my list of things to do. Again, I joke with this. I'm playing for the tie in life. I'm married with a no trade contract. Like, who am I trying to impress? Like, I'm not riding 100 miles unless it's straight downhill to the ocean. That's like my last ride of my life would be the 100-mile ride. And then I just said, it's been a good run, folks. Thank you. But I hope you guys are going to have a great weekend. I keep saying it's Labor Day weekend. Football's back. If we can feel it, the Buffs played, they win last night. We love what we saw on some of it. There's real concerns on some other issues, but it's back. And Broncos are right around the corner. Next week starts game week. Bo Nix, his first start. He'll be the first rookie starter for the Broncos since some guy named John Elway in 1983. So have a great time. Have a great weekend. Come back Monday ready to get real, because then it's Broncos Seahawks, and that's going to be a blast. Folks, I could not do this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or on wherever you listen, Apple and Spotify, if it weren't for the great folks, Nate Lundy at Mile Sports. Danny Bailey behind the glass today doing great work. I couldn't do it without them. There's a reason I moved over to Mile Sports to be their insider, and you're looking at it. This YouTube product, to be able to move to this avenue has just been so much fun, and it's just growing with each podcast. And I can't thank you guys enough for the sports, but I need my Sports to be part of it. My A1 from day one, Darby Hoggett of Hoggett Injury Law, and of course my friend Jamie Haig of RBJ Glass. Broncos country, I do this pod for you. Happiness that begins with me. Go out there and have a great day.